Good evening, and welcome to the March 5th, 2024 Guilderland Central School District Board of Education meeting. Would you all please silence your cell phones and stand for the pledge? I pledge of allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first on the agenda tonight, we have several public comments. We have some public comments in person, and then we also have some written public comments. So I'll start with the in-person public comments. When I call your name, just please introduce yourself at the mic, and each public comment we'll give 3 minutes. So first we'll have Ms. Riley, Mary Jane Riley.
I don't see him here.
Hi, my name is Mary Jane Riley, and I'm a parent of a special education student at the high school. My son had a very positive experience in the middle school, and we as parents would like to see the committee review and leverage what worked well at the middle school and apply it to the high school program. As part of this, on February 5th, an email was sent to Guilderland High School administration from parents requesting a group meeting to review the special education program. This request was denied. On February 8th, an email was sent to the Board of Education asking for the support of the Board of Education for this request, and no response was provided. On February 13th, a parent attended the Board of Education meeting bringing this request to the board members, and again, no response was provided. It's very discouraging for parents to contact several administrators, including the school principal, and receive such a lack of support, priority, and response from them. Parents would like to have the confidence and assurance that the high school program is in the best interest of all students of the special education department for the current school year and for future years to come. Our goal tonight as parents is to partner with the administration to gain a better understanding of the special education program, the culture, and how it's perceived within the high school. Together to explore opportunities for growth, inclusion, and understanding for all people, specifically related to the CSP program. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Riley. Next, we have Eric Depew.
Yes, my name is Eric Depew. I've got a prepared statement. It's related to excuse me, inclusion in our school here. In a reflection series, the School of Education at Syracuse University asked alumni to look back at their distinguished and fascinating lives and careers. The following is a direct quote from a recent article in that series pertaining to our superintendent, Marie Wiles, dated January 30th, 2024. When asked what she is most proud of in her career, quote, "I am proud of the progress we have made in Guilderland to become a more inclusive school district, especially at the secondary level." From this statement, as well as the remainder of this article, it's clear our superintendent is a firm supporter of inclusion for our children. One could even read this and think this is a mandate for Guilderland High School. In many ways, Guilderland is making great progress with regard to inclusion. For our self-contained classroom kids, a shining beacons of inclusion are the Best Buddies program and the Unified Sports program. However, neither of these programs are a function of our kids' typical school day, as these are both after-school programs and are not available in these students' lives in a consistent daily manner. And neither of these programs is led by our special education administration, illustrating a glaring hole for these children in their day-to-day lives at our high school, and a big opportunity for our improvement. As a father of a student of one of the high school's self-contained classroom students, I ask this board to consider taking the following tasks. First, support and ensure the execution of an independent third-party evaluation of the special education programs for Guilderland, specifically regarding our self-contained classrooms, with a focus area on how to increase inclusion in this population. Two, Ensure all recommendations from said assessment be made public for review. After which, an action plan be developed and implemented, inclusive of input from all interested parties. This being this board, the Administration for Special Needs Program, its teachers and its aides, the parents, and any other provider coming into contact with these kids. And third, that our special needs programs, particularly our self-contained classrooms, be developed from the bottom up with inclusion in the center of this plan, in place of the currently perceived approach of merely fitting it in where time and space exist, or in this case, after school only. Great programs are built with a foundation that supports their needs. Let's ensure inclusion is one of those primary needs. In closing, for the New York School Boards Association, DEI is meant to, quote, foster positive educational experiences for all our students and eliminate barriers that limit a student's chance to succeed, end quote, which includes our self-contained classroom kids. It is incumbent on this board to stand up and support these neurodiverse kids who can't or have a difficult time advocating for themselves, and do what is right by these children, ensure we interlace inclusion through their day whenever and wherever possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Depew. Can you put the timer on?
So it makes sense.
Yep. Next, we have Deirdre Depew.
She's timing.
Hi, I'm Deirdre Depew. Hello again. I was here last month. Here again. Today, I just want to start off with telling you a little sharing. Our children in this special ed self-contained classroom started off this school year positive, full of joy, full of excitement, ready to take on high school. They had a dedicated classroom teacher for their self-contained special education curriculum. That teacher was moved elsewhere in the district around Halloween. I tend to go off of the holidays here. Another teacher was brought in, and she left around Thanksgiving. After that, the position was filled by two amazing teachers who were covering, co-teaching the classroom while still maintaining their existing course loads from what we could see. The district has not posted that vacant position from the teacher who left around Thanksgiving. One of the co-teachers that's currently holding together the classroom is retiring at the end of the school year, leaving what now appears to me as two special education vacant positions in the high school, and still no postings. Now, we were told that they get better candidates in the summer, and so they weren't going to post till summer. However, currently on the Guilderland Central School District website, there are 6 other postings for teachers. And I just want to hear today, hopefully during the budget, that there is a commitment to having teachers for our kids, just like there is for the elementary special education teacher for 24-25. The English language teacher, these are at Linwood, Guilderland Elementary, Westmere Elementary, English teacher. Looks like there's going to be a French teacher and a Spanish teacher, a music teacher, and a math teacher. But there's no postings for the special education self-contained classroom teachers for the one who left, nor the one who is retiring at the end of this year. Additionally, I was made aware that the support staff in that program has left to go to a different program within the district as we're all getting ready to do our IEPs. So again, I just look at this vacancy there that's there to support our kids and us being included in these programs as a huge whole. I do see that there are 3 open office assistant positions, and I can only hope one of them might be for that office that currently, as far as we're aware, doesn't have somebody, or people are, again, covering the positions. So again, I ask you to consider our children in this budget. Consider my son who's sitting here in front of you today. It's hard for us to come out. It's hard for us parents to get here. One other parent had to call and said she couldn't come because her kid's sick today. You know, not everybody can get here, especially from our population. We're here and we're asking. Please support our kids in your budget. Please hire, post, find these people. They're out there. And thank you very much for the time.
Thank you, Ms. Depew. Next, we have Sienna Haggerty.
Good morning.
I don't know where, you already started? Oh, I didn't know it was 7 yet.
Oh, you're good evening,
We've
board
been
members.
walking since the front of,
Sienna, hold on one second.
I'm exhausted.
Good evening, board members. My name is Sienna Haggerty, and I'm a 5th grade student at Westmere Elementary School. Ever since I can remember, I have watched my dad coach high school football. 2 years ago, My sister Madison and I became water girls for the Troy High varsity football team, where I was closer to the action. I fell in love with the sport. I was so excited when Guilderland Pop Warner started the first girls flag football program last year. This was my chance to get off the sidelines and onto the field. The Guilderland Pop Warner team, coached by Heather Rivers, became the league champs. We played in the rain, mud, and worked so hard together as a team. We scored touchdowns, made plays, and forever friendships. I felt proud to be part of this team. When we found out my schools near us were going to have their own school flag team, I was so excited to think that I could someday play for my school. We were devastated to find out that the Guilderland School District was only one of just few schools around that chose not to have a team. I'm here today to ask the board to make sure that an all-girls flag football program would be included in this year's budget. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Haggerty. Next, we'll have Madison Haggerty.
Hello everyone, my name is Madison Haggerty. I attend 6th grade at Farnsworth Middle School. I am here to advocate why we should have an all-girls flag football team not only at Farnsworth Middle School, but making it a varsity sport at Guilderland High School. I had played on the 16U girls flag football team last year for Guilderland Pop Warner football. This was an amazing experience, especially coming in with no familiarity to the sport of flag football. We worked hard and eventually won the championship against April Park. Girls flag football is one of the fastest growing sports in the United States. According to the National Football League, over 474,000 girls from ages 6 to 17 played football in 2022. That is a 63% increase from 2019. In addition to girls flag football growing popularity, it provides an opportunity for girls to play a sport that will challenge athletes both intellectually and physically. I feel that if Guilderland does not prioritize girls flag football into this year's budget, you are putting our student athletes at a disadvantage. While other local schools are building their programs, we are falling behind. It is my hope that Guilderland contributes to the growth of the game by including girls flag football into this year's budget. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Haggerty. Next, we have Alicia Peichel. Dave, can you check that?
We were getting a lot of feedback on it earlier, so we turned it down.
Okay.
Christian, can you bring the public comment mic? That's what I'm talking about. Thank you.
That was me.
Good evening. My name is Alicia Peichel. I'm a 7th grader at FMS, and I'm here tonight to ask the board to consider making girls flag football a varsity sport. I know one of my teammates came to the last meeting in support of this as well, and was told there was a process that needed to be followed. I would like to take this opportunity to tell you about the process I had trying to play in a male-dominated sport. I've always loved football and tried convincing my parents to play tackle, which I didn't win, so we compromised on flag football. Many teams I was placed on as a free agent, where I didn't know anyone and they didn't know my skill set. I would either sit the bench or be put into positions that I knew I had a better skill set for. Some comments I would hear would be, "I've never coached a girl before," or "Girls should really have their own team." That was why I was so happy when Guilderland Pop Warner introduced a flag program just for girls. I was on a team with girls just like me. Loved the sport and coaches that treated us like real players. It was our first year and we faced some challenges, but we did it. And I truly believe if our school introduced this sport, we would have even more success. You know the whole saying, if you build it, they will come? As you see behind me, Guilderland has the interest and support for this sport. And don't girls deserve the same choices and opportunities that their boy classmates have? Thank you for listening, and I hope you will take the time to consider making girls flag football a varsity sport.
Thank you, Ms. Peichel. Next, we have Elaine Uzain, and I apologize if I said your name wrong. Elaine?
I won't need a microphone. I know how to project. I'm a military
Mrs. Luzine, our families at home won't be able to hear you, though, so if you could please go to the microphone.
I say, are you sure? Because I really just wanted to talk to this group and to you people.
But no one will be able to hear you when they watch the board meeting. Peter, thank you.
Thank you, Peter.
I'm not going to hold it. Can you just put it down?
Thank you.
No, I'm not going to. Thank you. Oh, all right.
Thank you, Peter.
And thank you for being here. I didn't intend to speak. I travel on Route 20. It's very difficult, and it gets more difficult with 4 lanes and sometimes 6. And there's tailgating like crazy. There's speeding. The speed is 40. I go in the slow lane and go 40 or maybe 45, and people are ready to run into the back of my car. And I don't think it's safe for the kids on school buses. I don't think it's safe for people driving their car, because you just can't see 4 lanes with the size of cars today. They block, even sometimes you can't even see a stop sign. And you don't know because the cars are so big, blocking everything. And it's just constant. And I've been here since '68. And I can see a difference for a number of years now. And it really isn't right. I suggested long ago to please put up these signs that light up like they have in the Adirondacks. And it shows your speed limit. No, they didn't want that. They don't hire more police, and those poor police have all they can do to do what they're doing now. And if we started ticketing these people that go 60 instead of 40, Gilderland would have a lot of money. Now, maybe I'm wrong. I mean, I used to drive a sports car, so I understand what they're doing. But, you know, it's just not right. People have to, that live here, need to get out on Route 20, or you can't go to any grocery store. You can't go to the Ace Hardware, you can't go to the post office box, because it gets worse and worse, and especially in the afternoon. And I don't know what to do about it, because I keep saying it to people that we need to stop that speeding. When you can go in one of the restaurants and you'll see them speeding by, especially when they're not bumper to bumper. So I don't know what we can do, but I think if enough people complain, it'll become safer for our children and safer for adults. Because it makes no difference who gets hurt. I mean, if you get killed, you get killed. What are you going to do? The death is the same, no matter what age you are. And God watches us. I am a believer. But I wanted to say that maybe you people can say something about it, being that you have a lot of young people getting off on 20. But even though I don't get off as much, I don't even know when I can drive when there's less traffic. Because at 3 o'clock, the state gets out. And that's fine. It's nice to have these people going through our community to where they live. But we still need in Gilderland to be able to take a turn to the left or somewhere, and you can't. Sometimes it's 6 lanes because of turning left or turning right to go into a store. So that's why I came, because I thought it was on transportation, your meeting tonight, and I felt maybe you'd care about it. I do.
Thank you, Ms. Lezine. I'm jotting this down, and when public comment is finished, I'll make a comment to address your comment, but thank you so much for sharing that.
And thank you for having me and having me do it.
You're welcome.
Because I really don't mind. I'm a teacher K through college, every grade.
Awesome.
And every kind of school, parochial and public, and even sometimes in Gilderland.
Great.
Yeah, so.
Thank you. Thank you. Next, we have Claire Depew.
Hi. So I'm Claire Depew, and both of my parents have been up here, and my brother's sitting here. And since last year when he was in the middle school, I've seen his speech decrease and his overall attitude towards everyone in our environment just drastically increase. He's come home sad, whether when he was in the middle school with me, he came home happy every day. He saw me in the hallway, he was happy. Now he barely sees all of his friends that aren't in self-contained classes. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Depew. Next, we have Nancy Marmette.
Thank you. My name is Nancy Marmette, and I have a child who's in the 10th grade at the high school. I have come to the board before, but it was about 5 years ago when he was going from elementary school to middle school. And he had done fabulous in elementary school with co-teaching, but I was shocked to learn that there was no co-teaching at the middle school. And we had a lot of students, not just my son, that did well and actually did well socially being in those classes. And I was told at that time that no, we go top down. We have it at the high school, but we don't have it at the middle school. I've been an educator for over 35 years. I've never heard of such baloney, quite honestly. You grow programs from the roots. You don't start at the top. At least I've not seen those programs be successful. I'm here now because I cannot say anything bad about the middle school. They pulled it off. They did a tremendous job. But those teachers did a yeoman's job. They did more than resource. They did a lot for those kids and acted as co-teachers whenever they could. And the general ed teachers were open to that. So that saved my son in middle school. Coming to the high school, where, okay, now we do have co-teaching again. My son is in co-teaching for everything but math. And I was told, I asked, why can't he be in something for English? He doesn't like to write, he doesn't like things, he needs a slower pace. My son has cerebral palsy and has very slow cognitive processing. He gets it, he can understand things. He passed the social studies regents last year in 10th grade. But now he's being dragged through Regents classes at breakneck speeds, where he's learning some things. It surprised me when he came home and started talking about Mussolini and Hitler. I never thought that talk would come from my son. So the teachers, again, that's what makes Guilderland what it is. It is the teachers. The teachers go above and beyond, and you are very fortunate to have them. But when I talk to the teachers about, can't we look at something a little different, can't we do that, I'm always told, well, no, this is what we have to offer. Well, as a special educator, to me, those words are wrong. Those words are almost evil, because as cliche as it sounds, the I in IEP is for individualized. We don't push kids into programs we have. We make our programs work for our kids in whatever way that is. We can individualize within programs. I have found that lacking, and I also find it very lacking that there's any parent support or asking for opinions or concerns. There's no forum for parents here. Parents should be partners, especially in special education. You're taking care of our students till they're possibly 22, but we have our students for life, and we want them prepared for life. My son is a very chatty guy, he's a very social guy, but it's all superficial. You know, some kids may eat with him at lunch, but most of the time he's eating with a teaching assistant. It's not been since elementary school that anyone has ever asked him to do something outside of school. And he would love to do that. And when I tried to get him to ask people, he's like, well, I don't think they'll want to do that with me. But so I don't feel that inclusion is how I would categorize Guilderland. I feel like if it were inclusion, it would be students getting what they need. And that's what special ed is. And fair is not equal. It's just the way it is.
Ms. Marmette, 3 minutes have passed. Yeah, a while ago. That's okay. Can you wrap it up soon?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm very passionate about it. I spent my life's work doing it. So I have a strong need to support special ed and to help people understand. It's time to think out of the box. It's time to get creative. It's time to really define the terms. And it's time for Guilderland Special Ed to bring parents in so that we can work as partners.
Thank you, Ms. Marmette. Next, we have Annabelle Rivers.
My name is Annabelle Rivers, and I think high school girls deserve a football team because they have put a lot of effort into football. Also, Guilderland Pop Warner started a girls football team. My question is, why should we get this opportunity to play football, but not high school girls?
Thank you, Ms. Rivers. I have 4 written public comments, but before I move to those, are there any more in-person public comments that were turned in? I know we don't have Linda today. No? Okay. All right, so I'll read the public comments that were sent to us. The first one is from Amy Horalchuk. She writes, I'm advocating for a coach for the Guilderland High School girls wrestling team for the 24-25 winter season. This will be the 3rd season that Guilderland has supported a girls team so that athletes can participate in girls-only interscholastic wrestling, an opportunity that has opened doors for my daughter to wrestle across the state and country. My daughter has found a home within our wrestling room at Guilderland High School, and I appreciate the hard work of the coaches and support for the team. While my daughter has performed well in competition, her big picture experience has included so much more. The mentorship, self-confidence, camaraderie, leadership in both mental and physical strength and wellness. In its 3rd season, I believe it is past time for the Guilderland girls wrestling team to have a dedicated coach. Girls wrestling has recognition state and nationwide, and Guilderland should recognize it as well. In other sports where there are separate teams by gender, there are separate coaches. In addition to gender equality, during the 24-25 season, the time required to coach a girls' team is significant. In addition to other responsibilities, the girls' tournaments are often on the same day as boys' tournaments, making it not possible for a coach to work with both teams at the same time. A girls' wrestling team without a dedicated coach looking out for the girls is a safety concern. Our athletes work hard to prepare for competition, and wrestling is a sport with a significant amount of tough physical training and need for health management, including weight. Thank you for supporting our female athletes, Amy Horalchuk. The next public comment is from Nadi Horalchuk. She writes, my name is Nadi Horalchuk, and I'm writing today to advocate for the installation of a coach for the GHS girls varsity wrestling team for the 24-25 winter sports season. I am an athlete on the team and one of the founding members of the girls program. Although having a coach might seem like one of the basic needs to start a team, we have had to go 2 seasons without a coach who is solely dedicated to our team. Many girls have found tremendous success in the program that we have built in the past 2 years, and I believe that it is time to take the next step. The addition of a girls-only coach will benefit the athletes, other coaches, and the entire Guilderland wrestling program. In all other sports at GHS where teams are separated by gender, they have separate coaches as well. This is for a multitude of reasons. As is expected, managing a varsity sport takes a lot of time. A coach must manage records, events, and communications. In addition to responsibilities of every sports coach, a wrestling coach needs to spend extra time helping athletes manage their health and their weight. During the first 2 seasons of our team, there were many days where the coaching staff had to find a way to somehow provide coaches for 3 tournaments on the same day: JV, varsity girls, and varsity boys. As you can imagine, this is very hard without a dedicated girls coach. Thank you so much for taking the time to help our program and prepare us for success next winter. The next public comment is from Jennifer McVeigh Dyke. As a parent of a member of the Guilderland High School girls wrestling team, Jenna Curry, I'm advocating for the assignment of a dedicated coach for the girls program. Having a coach solely focused on the girls team will provide them with the attention and support they deserve, ensuring they receive equal priority and opportunities for growth. Additionally, a dedicated coach will offer specialized training tailored to the unique needs and strengths of female wrestlers, fostering a more inclusive, empowering environment for our young athletes. By securing a dedicated coach for the girls wrestling team, we are not only promoting gender equity in sports, but enhancing the overall experience and success of our female wrestlers. I hope you will join me in supporting our female wrestlers by advocating for this resource for the 24-25 season and beyond. And the last public comment: hi, my name is Emily Knopper. I understand there are other ideas with the budget, and a coach for the girls on wrestling would be a great idea to share. A coach for the boys is very hard, and getting a coach to tournaments and meets while at the boys' meet and tournaments are very hard for our coaches. To have a dedicated coach to us would help us a lot. Our coaches help us as much as possible, but it's very important to have a coach of our own. The girls' wrestling population is getting bigger and more involved. It would be important to keep going with another coach for the girls' team. Thank you for taking your time to read this, and I hope you take this into consideration. Are there any other public comments were sent in? Okay. So we have, I think, 4 different topics. First, to the special ed, to the parents that spoke about the special ed program, I will first apologize that we did discuss it, and I should have emailed you back that we were discussing it, and I know that there's, we've had some conversations about what we can and cannot say in public, but I should have emailed you to let you know that we were talking about that. So if before you leave tonight, if you could, I know Mary Jane Riley, I have your email, but the other parents that spoke, if you could give me your email, so I will get back to you, and I apologize for that. But I know that we have been talking about it and trying to figure out, and I think we do have a meeting next week that we're going to be talking about it beforehand, but first figuring out, let me respond to your comments in email, and then start figuring out an action plan to address what you've brought up. So I apologize for that. Second, the flag football, and I guess I'll tie that in with girls wrestling, because we've had advocacy for both tonight, and the superintendent is presenting her draft budget tonight. I know that those topics will be discussed in the draft budget, so just can hang on for 1 minute for that. And then the last topic, transportation. I know we have a new transportation supervisor, and I think we can just pass on the public comment.
May I ask one question?
Yeah, sure.
To Nancy's point about support or a kind of an opportunity for parents to get together, is there still a PTA that's specific for special ed?
I can answer that.
Parents?
No.
What happened?
That's kind of the kicker.
I'm going to say what happened is, you end up coming with other special ed parents, you're preaching to the choir. There's no one in the district there's no one to take that information and to try to use it in a meaningful way in programming. So the PTAs tend to dry up because, everyone has a lot on their plate. And you go and you talk, and nothing changes.
I attended one, was invited just to attend one, and I found it very valuable. And it was me and Barb Federico at the time, and we did bring back information to the board. If it starts up again, I would be willing to liaison, or I don't know what the process is, but.
I think that's wonderful, but I also think there is a need for a forum for parents and special ed administrators and teachers to get back together, and board members, and sit down and talk about programming. There is no cohesive programming running through this district. We need it desperately.
Their way or the highway.
So I think for this, your question, Blanca, and the comment, so we'll address the specific comments that you all spoke about tonight, and then at the end of the meeting, when we talk about ideas, we can talk about the special ed PTA, but also how we create that space for everybody to, share their concerns, et cetera. And so it sounds like it wasn't happening necessarily at that special ed PTA level.
No, and I think people think special ed, that we're very myopic, we don't think special ed. But we know there are a lot of general ed kids that could benefit from different programming than our kids would get. 2-year programs in English and math or science are very common in most of the suburban council districts. Why can't Gilbert have it? They don't because they say they're inclusive, and they're not included. So
We will take those comments and we'll talk about them as well at the end. And before we move on to the superintendent's draft budget, Claire, were you going to say something again? You can.
I was going to say about PTA. I know that my parents have a lot going on, like with him, like it's hard to get places, and it's hard to get there and try to be included because there's so much going on in everyone's life, especially with having a different disabilities in the house.
Especially with, that's what I was going to say, is we found with the SEPSA that, I mean, we could clock how many times Alex would call. It was hard as a special education parent to get out of the house. It was hard to get people in, and it just, I mean, Claire, you're right. You're 100% right.
So if so at the end of the meeting, we can talk about that more generally, but if Mr. and Mrs. Pugh, if you can get me your emails, and then that way I can get back to you. And Ms. Riley, I'll also email you back as well. Okay, so we'll move on to the next part of the agenda, which will address some of these topics in public comment, which is the superintendent's draft budget. So I'll turn this over to Dr. Wiles.
Good evening, everyone. I'm so glad you could be here tonight for the first look at our proposed spending plan for the 2024-2025 school year. And so we will get started this evening. Our Assistant Superintendent for Business, Dr. Van Alstyne, will be co-presenting with me. We'll go back and forth here across the slides, but here is kind of the overview of our agenda. So we'll start with kind of what our priorities are and what our process was for putting together this draft spending plan. I will hand it over to Dr. Van Alstyne to review the financial context for the budget development, that will look at kind of the bigger picture items that frame the decision-making piece. And then I'll come back to the podium to talk about a summary of the recommended changes we have for 24-25. And then we'll talk about the next steps in our budget development process. So here are the key questions that we try to address in our spending plan, and that is, what are our priorities? What do our students need? What can we afford now and sustain over time in our operating budget? This is a really important question for us as we're coming off of several years where we had extra funding through federal COVID dollars. And so that becomes the other piece that we had to wrestle with in this spending plan. And that is, what items did we fund through our, it's called ARP ESSER, that can be incorporated into our general operating budget for next year, because those funds will be no longer available to us by September of 2024. So we always begin with our mission, getting our students not only across the finish line at graduation, but ready to kind of greet the world, ready to, go on to their next set of challenges, is right at the heart of all that we do. Here's our mission statement, and we really do want to think about how we inspire all students to be active and lifelong learners and able to participate in the global community. And we like to talk about, and this resonates with many of our speakers who came tonight, that all is really each and every, which speaks to the individual needs of each and every one of our children, whether it's their learning needs or their language needs or any other things that make them unique. And so we do strive to meet the needs of each and every one of our students. And then our vision, we want an environment that is safe and welcoming. We want to collaborate with our parents to pursue this academic excellence and personal growth. And it's all focused on this whole idea of the future. We're always thinking about what is next for our children and how are we preparing them for that. And those premises guide our decision-making as we work through this work. But we also reach out to our various stakeholders to get input on what are the things that are most important to you as parents, as staff, as students. And so this year we took a little bit of a different approach to our using our tool that's called Thought Exchange. And we did a survey back in January where we asked our parents, our faculty and staff and students to prioritize the various elements that are included in our general spending plan. And you can see the highlights that were shared there. For parents, that whole notion of maintaining our low class sizes. We've been working very hard in past years to keep those class sizes as low as we possibly can. Preserving offerings in the arts was a high priority, as well as rigorous academic programming, along with continuing to support students who require academic assistance, and then our continued focus on students' social emotional learning. Those topics continue to resonate as we're now 4 years out from that period of time that I don't really want to talk about too much, but that changed our lives for many years. And then you can see faculty and staff also want to maintain low class sizes, to increase paraprofessional support, to continue to support students who require additional assistance, social emotional learning, and preservation of the arts are all important. And then our students today really highlighted the interest in having robust athletic programs, so we appreciate their underscoring that. They also care deeply about the arts. They also want lots of electives. They also want to have options for academic support if needed. And they too care about lower class sizes. We asked our Board of Education to do that same thought exchange survey, and you can see their top, I didn't misnumber those, we had ties in some of these topics. So tied for first place was maintaining low class size and preserving offerings in the arts. Tied for second place was continuing support for social emotional learning and preserving rigorous academic programs. And then last was increasing teaching assistant support. I also wanted to include this slide that captures kind of the 4 big areas that we have been working on since 2020. And these goals will carry us through 2025, so it's soon to be time to revisit these. But we have been working for this period of time on closing achievement or opportunity gaps for each and every one of our students. We want to focus on the whole child. That's the way we think about the wraparound social emotional supports we have for our students. Focusing on diversity has been a tremendous focus and priority for us over the years. And we're always talking about our facilities. We don't have within our general operating budget generally the scope of resources needed to do major work on our facilities, but it is a priority, and that's why we have our Future Ready Task Force meeting monthly to help plan our next capital project, and I can mention bits and pieces of that as we go forward. But those are the 4 big areas that frame our priorities. So I want to just talk a little bit about the process. We start this process in October, believe it or not, and we review the budget decisions that we made in the spring of 2023. The board will adopt its spending plan for the subsequent year in early April, which is a long way away from the start of that new school year. So when we start the subsequent budget, we want to go back and ask the question, how did we do? Did we make the right predictions? Did we get the right resources in place? And do we need to make adjustments in that early fall of the new year? We spent a lot of time looking at student needs. The most significant of that, or the foundational one, is what's our enrollment? What number of students will be walking through our doors next year, and how can we plan appropriately for them? But then we also look at our students' academic, social, and emotional needs and how we need to build support into the budget. And we want to continue to provide robust and varied opportunities for learning both in and out of the classroom. We also have a lot of non-instructional costs to look at. I mentioned facilities. We do have some support and upgrades and fixes in our budget around facilities. And then an ongoing theme that's been with us for a lot of years now, and that's our transportation challenges. We heard about the challenges of Route 20. I think we've all lived that, but our severe driver shortage has really had a tremendous impact on our overall budget as we try to navigate that shortage and its implications. And then I've mentioned this before, and you'll hear it several times as I walk through our steps here, and that is trying to find ways to preserve those added things we could afford when we had federal dollars. How do we keep as much of those as we can when the federal dollars go away? And I'll try to pinpoint all of those places where we made those decisions and how we hope to continue going forward. But when all is said and done, the spending plan we're going to share with you tonight, it does maintain our lower class sizes that we've been working on for years. It preserves all of our existing programs and services for students. It preserves our social and emotional supports. It does address the end of our federal COVID relief grant funds for 2024. It certainly reflects increased costs in areas that are outside of our control. Probably the two biggest ones that we'll talk about tonight are contract transportation and health insurance. Those are huge cost drivers in our plan. The next bullet here has also been a tremendously impactful element of our work, and that's to address the tax refunds that we've had to make as a school district in recent years, and Andrew will speak more of this, but it's well over $5 million of tax refunds we've needed to return out of our operating budget. So that has a real impact, and we're trying to mitigate those impacts for the year that's upcoming and into the future. And then we asked our board, and when they did their survey, how do you feel about, trying to exceed the tax levy limit? And I got a resounding, please don't do it. So the budget that you will see tonight does not exceed the tax levy limit, and so it requires a simple majority of voters for approval. And having said that, I'm going to step away from the podium and invite Dr. Van Alstyne to come up and talk about the financial context for our budget. And I'll take your spot.
Thank you, Dr. Wiles. I am going to start by talking about our current year, as Dr. Wiles was talking about. On May 16th, 2023, voters approved the $119 million budget for the 23-24 school year. The budget received just over 70% of support from the community. There was an 8.99% year-over-year increase in the budget with a 2.66% tax rate increase. Our school district this year, we have about 4,850 students. They are supported by 944 staff. 711 are full-time, 233 are part-time. More than half of those are teachers, 409 are support staff, and there are 27 administrators. This is our current enrollment by grade and next year's projected enrollment by grade. And I really want to emphasize that the K-5, the 6-8, and the 9-12 totals, because we see in the context of a small overall increase in enrollment year over year, a pretty significant redistribution. So the elementary level will be lower next year. It's projected to drop quite a bit, whereas the middle and high school cohorts are getting slightly larger. So we have to balance all of this when we look at the choices we make in the budget, because we have to meet the needs of all students, and there will be fewer elementary, more middle and high. The long-term projection, again, things are cyclical, is that as the smaller cohort goes into middle and high school, that there will be a larger cohort replacing it. This is the 6-year history of our budgets and our budget support. The two things I want to point out, last year, or this current year, so last year's vote received the second highest level of support in 6 years. And also all 6 of these budgets and all of our budgets since the tax cap was instituted have been either at or below the cap. State aid makes up a significant proportion of our budget, although smaller than the levy. And the state aid process starts with the governor's executive budget proposal. In January, the governor of New York proposes a budget. The legislature, over the course of February and March, reacts to that. And if all things go well, in early April, they agree on a final state budget that provides state aid to school districts. This year, the governor made a couple proposals that are significant. Foundation aid is the largest general source of funds for education. This is a per pupil aid that takes into account student need, takes into account enrollment, and local district fiscal capacity. The governor proposed modifying some elements of the formula that would slightly reduce the aid for school districts like us. And then for districts that have experienced enrollment declines, it would significantly cut their aid, but would not currently be subject to that. The governor also proposed expanding support for zero emission or electric school buses by changing how aid is calculated in those. And then, as Rachel Anderson has talked about at previous meetings, the governor has a proposal about how we teach reading to young students. This table summarizes what was in the governor's proposed, or the enacted budget last year, what we ended up receiving, and then what is in the executive budget proposal for this year. Foundation aid is fully funded now, which means that as enrollment goes up or down, the formula changes. New York currently has a save harmless provision that prevents it from going down. But the reason ours went up slightly is mostly due to a slight bump in enrollment from what was originally projected in state aid. When we look at the bottom line numbers here, I need to emphasize that the UPK allocation, or the universal preschool allocation, is a number of slots that the state funds. It doesn't mean that we're able to provide those because we partner with community providers. So when the state holds or increases the number of amount of money we get under UPK, it's not funds that we will actually receive and be able to distribute to community partners unless we see an unprecedented uptick in the number of partners we have. The other component of our of our revenue is the property taxes, or the levy we share with the community. This is the majority source of our funds, and New York State levies are subject to a property tax cap that was implemented a little over 10 years ago. And this is a complex formula that essentially says you can increase your levy either 2% or inflation, whichever is less. In this case, like the last couple of years, inflation's been well over 2%. So we have that 2% figure. But then each district has its own specific cap because there are some expenses that are excluded from the tax cap, and then that gives you a district-specific tax cap. This figure is crucially important because it determines the threshold of community support you need for the budget. If you try to exceed the tax cap, as Dr. Wiles mentioned, there's not a tremendous amount of support for that among the board at the moment, and something that we've not done in the past. You need to get a supermajority, so you have to have 60% of voters support the budget for it to pass, whereas if you comply with the tax cap, if your levy is at or below the limit, you need a simple majority, so 50% plus 1% of voters. This is our tax cap calculation. I ran through it in more detail at a previous board meeting, so I will not walk through each step for all of you. If you want to, that meeting was recorded, you can go back and watch it. But our levy increase this year, the maximum allowable increase is 2.73%. The reason it's above 2%, the factors contribute to our ERS, which is retirement costs we pay for non-instructional employees. When the rate grows above 2 percentage points, that amount's excludable. And then the largest driver for our district-specific tax cap is the capital borrowing. So what we spend on capital projects and debt for capital projects is excludable, so the change year over year is a factor. So what does this look like at the big picture sense for our budget? The superintendent's budget proposal is a 5 $1.56 million year-over-year increase, which is 4.64%, with an estimated tax impact of 2.73%. As Dr. Wiles alluded to, for the last few years, one of the largest fiscal challenges we've had have been tax certiorari claims. These are when a property owner contests their assessment, and then through this process in the courts, either there's a settlement or they win a judicial victory, and then when that happens and the assessment is changed, we have to refund those taxes. We have spent millions of dollars in the last few years, over $5 million. We have one outstanding tax certiorari claim to repay, which is for Crossgates. That's currently under appeal. We will be finally have some closure, and that's what this budget is designed with in mind. This year, we'd anticipated having it finalized. Things moved slower than we thought. So we carried $1.6 million in this year's budget to help us partially fund the Crossgates claim. It's so large that we're going to have to mix paying some of it with general fund money and borrowing. And so we have proposed reducing this line for next year's budget to $400,000. This is what Dr. Wiles was alluding to when she said that we want to balance this year's students, next year's students, and students over the future. We want to spread out the costs because it's so large that putting it in any one budget would have a substantial impact on operations and would affect all of those. It would constrain our ability to meet the priorities that were set out by various stakeholders. So this $400,000 line is what it will cost to borrow over the life of the bond after we pay some of this year's funds in cash. So what does the budget look like? The majority of the budget, 50.4%, goes to salaries. More than a quarter goes to benefits. Health insurance, and specifically, is our biggest single increase. But salaries and benefits, more than 3/4 of the spending in the budget, 76.2%. Debt service, contractual services, and BOCES services are the next three big categories. And everything else is less than 4%. So the single biggest costs we face as a district, like almost all school districts, are salaries and benefits. Now looking at the biggest line item year-over-year changes, our health insurance is going up significantly. Over $2 million, which is more than almost 12%. We are part of a consortium for health insurance, and we're self-funded for prescription drug coverage, usage rates, the costs of health insurance, the cost of prescription drugs have been growing for us. They're growing. We're not an anomaly. This is a general trend. So we are seeing the same thing that other school districts, other public government entities, and other private sector entities are facing. The second biggest increase is instructional salaries. So these are contractual parts of the contract negotiations. Put here, this is where the reduction in property tax refunds, the reduction of this line from $1.6 million to $400,000. This will, again, spread out the impact over multiple school years. And then we have capital expenses, other salaries, so that's the non-instructional staff, TRS and ERS, the retirement costs. So we put TRS, ERS, health insurance, that's the vast majority of that benefit line. Contract transportation by itself, another large year-over-year increase. This is because out-of-district transportation, we do not have the staffing for, so we have to contract out. The prices of contract transportation have been rising exponentially, well over the rate of inflation, so this is a cost that we have to put in the budget because we need to be able to fund transporting students. And finally, we have BOCES expenses. BOCES expenses are beneficial in that we receive aid on them the following year, so what we spend this year, we get a portion of that back in state aid the following year. That, I will turn it over to Dr. Wiles for the specifics.
Okay, the next section of the presentation will really go level by level, and I'll talk briefly through the things that will change from the current year to what we plan for next year in the general budget. So in this slide, this attempts to capture the landscape of our elementary buildings and our projected average class sizes, K-5 and across all 5 buildings. So you see pluses and minuses in various boxes. This is where we are projecting to either add a section or reduce a section based on the numbers of children who we are projecting to be in each grade in each of the buildings. The gray boxes, where the numbers have a little star next to them, indicate these are grade levels where we are at the upper end of the class size limit for those grades. So in K2, our class size ranges are from 18 to 23. So for example, we're looking closely at that kindergarten classroom in Altamont that even now in March 5th is projected to have 23 students. So if we were to have more students come in, we take a close look at that. One of the other things that I'll point out on this slide is at the very bottom. We build into our budget, and it's a very unique thing to Guilderland, 4 unassigned FTEs that we can use over the months ahead as changes in enrollment happen. It gives us the flexibility to adjust and add additional sections if we need to. Sometimes it's a whole section. At the secondary level, it's often maybe an additional course, so it's a portion of a 1.0. But a couple things I want to point out here. Dr. Van Alstyne mentioned our declining enrollment at the elementary level. And you'll see that there are more minus sections than there are plus sections on this slide. In fact, we have 6 fewer FTEs for elementary sections next year based on enrollment. But even with that, you can see we have very reasonable class sizes. The averages, you can see on the far right column there by grade, and our overall class size average is 20.5. So as we watch the enrollment, and we literally watch it building by building, grade by grade, beginning now and going right through August, if we need to make adjustments to make sure those class sizes stay appropriate, we absolutely do it. So there's a lot going on this slide. So the key point is we are working very hard to maintain those lower class sizes, which were a priority for all of our stakeholder groups. The next slide will include a couple other changes we're making at the elementary level. And the first item here is actually a reduction. Last year in June, both of our enrichment teachers resigned. They were split between 2 people, split between the 5 buildings, and they were providing enrichment activities. Both had opportunities to go on to some other kinds of teaching opportunities. So in June, knowing that our federal dollars were going away and knowing that many of our other needs are going to be remaining, we did not fill those positions, kind of having a wait-and-see attitude. And so they are not filled in the budget going forward. We don't plan to refill those positions because we see that we have, at this time in our overall operations, needs in other areas. So you can see it's 2 FTEs, which is $175,800, and there was $4,800 worth of materials and supplies. Doing that helps us restore 2 reading positions that in the current year were funded through federal dollars that we will not have next year. So we had a reading position at Altamont Elementary School and another at Linwood Elementary School previously or currently grant funded. We will be able to put those positions in our general fund going forward. Similarly, the social emotional needs of our students are not going away either. We continue to see students struggle with those kinds of areas. So we also had a social worker, this one, that was shared between Guilderland Elementary School and Westmere Elementary School, also grant funded, that we are able to keep within our general operating budget for next year. We feel that that is a very important source and resource to keep in place for our students. And those are all of the changes right now for elementary schools. At the middle school, last year this time, I was standing at this podium talking about a big investment that we made to reduce class sizes in grades 6 and 7 at the middle school. We are maintaining the commitment to those lower class sizes, and this slide shows that in grades 6, 7, and 8, we are looking at 16 sections of each of those grades that will give us class sizes in the mid to low 20s, so 24.6, 23.6, and 24.8 respectively. Also at the middle school, we are looking at other supports that are needed. Among them is a .4 Spanish teacher. .2 of that position this year was grant funded. We're able to carry forward that plus an additional .2, listening to and trying to respond as best we can to the advocacy we've heard about providing extra support for students in their world language classes. So that .4 is included. It also makes it possible for us to actually advertise and post for a 1.0 position, because part-time positions in everything, but particularly the languages, are almost impossible to fill. So that will be for middle school Spanish. We have a .2 for additional reading support that'll cover a section in grade 6. This year, right now, we are piloting unified PE at Farnsworth. That is something that we want to continue doing. So you'll see that .1 FTE for $7,100, so we can continue that into the future. And then lastly, for the middle school, we need to renew our 3-year contract for our math curriculum. This is iReady. And we are renewing the 3-year contract because when you do multiple years, you actually get a more favorable quote, and it'll be a savings of $17,000 over the life of that 3-year time. At the high school, we are expanding our clerical support in the counseling office, and this is really to allow the staff to actually help out our staff who do our social work. So it's just a couple extra 90 minutes a day to help support that staff. We also have some added staffing in our world language programs, a .4 in Spanish, and this is to kind of reinstate Spanish 2 that we had to collapse because we were short on staff this year. And then a .2 in Italian based on enrollment. And then also at the high school, we need to continue to replenish and replace our graphing calculators, and so that has been included here. Also, 2 things from the materials and supplies side of the house, cafeteria tables. We're looking to replace several of those for $6,000, and we're adding some, or replacing the privacy curtains in our nurse's office for $1,700. Next, I want to turn to special education. The first item here is elementary comprehensive skills program. If you happen to notice on the slide with the enrollment that we have a big increase in the numbers of students in self-contained programs at the elementary level, it was 35. So we need to host 4 classrooms to support the needs of these students. One of our classrooms this year was supported through grant funds, so this $379,400 is dollars that came through a grant. They will now be through the general fund that supports 1 special education teacher, 4 teaching assistants, 1.0 speech, and a .4 social worker. The other big change I want to mention here for the last several years, our 3 self-contained comprehensive skills classrooms have been at Altamont Elementary School. We are moving them for next year for a variety of reasons. There will be 2 at Guilderland Elementary School and 2 at Pine Bush Elementary School. Some of the reason is travel time. We have youngsters who live out on the Westmere side of town, and they take a long bus ride to get to Altamont. The other reason is to provide greater opportunities for those students to mainstream into their other classrooms. In Altamont, we have 2 and 3 sections of every single grade. there's not a lot of room sometimes to invite our students with disabilities to come and mainstream. In our larger buildings, we will have more opportunity for that kind of work. The nuts and bolts of this, I will fully admit, on March 5th are still a work in progress. We have some fine-tuning to do with where staffing will go and some of those details. But I want to thank the elementary principals and our special education department for really putting their heads together to think about how do we best serve our students who require this level of support. And then we have a little bit of savings in tuitions for some of our special ed students who are graduating or reaching the age of 22. So we included that savings here tonight. I'm going to switch to athletics. I know there's a lot of people here waiting to see what are we going to talk about with athletics. And I will say this, we had a long list of asks from our athletic director, and because there's a lot of needs there. Our programs have been growing, and we've been adding programs. So just in the last few years, we have girls golf, we have unified bocce, we have esports now, girls wrestling, and we've had to increase the amount of dollars just in the general supply lines in order to support those programs. So it's funding across the board for, I shouldn't say across the board because I don't want to say everyone's getting new uniforms, but we want to expand the numbers of teams who can get some new uniforms, especially our younger athletes who get the hand-me-downs. So there's additional money there. Materials, supplies, some small equipment are all included in there, including the constant need to replace and refurbish our football helmets, obviously for safety reasons. So that big number of $16,150 is to help with those existing programs. Officials' fees continue to go up every single year, so the $43.54 addresses those. And then two other additions. We have a volleyball program for our boys, but we do not have a modified program. So there is no feeder program at the middle school to prepare students and athletes to be ready at the JV and varsity level. And this has put us at a tremendous competitive disadvantage. So a priority here is to support our existing programs and put them in a position where they can be successful. So 6932 is to begin that modified program in volleyball. And lastly, on this slide, the girls wrestling coach, we had some terrific advocacy tonight explaining why this is the right thing to do. This is the process we follow when we want to start something new. We try it out, we see if it's going to grow and catch on, and there's no doubt that our girls wrestling program has grown and caught on. And we want to recognize that by making sure that next year they have a dedicated coach for those girls. I'm going to move on to music right now. Lots of requests from the music department as well. We tried to take those top priorities. This first one is for musical accompanists. Mr. Winans has made the point that it's really tough to direct a chorus and play the piano at the same time. And can we bring in some people to help accompany our musical groups? That is not his full ask, but it's the start of the process to support our music teachers and our music program in that way. The same can be said for musical equipment. He had a much more robust request. When we were doing our grant funding, we were able to do a tremendous amount of purchase for equipment out of our grant dollars, and we pulled some of that money out of our general operating budget. This is a step to start putting it back into our general operating budget. Musical equipment is not inexpensive under any circumstances, and it continues to get more expensive, so we want to support that. Musical repair, we've added a couple extra $1,000 to get to a total of $11,000 for repairs each year. And then we are an upgrade for one of our software programs for our music tech lab at the high school. District-wide, meeting some other needs and priorities. This year, we were able to bring on a teacher on special assignment to work in areas of diversity, equity, and inclusion. That position in the current year was grant funded. This is an ongoing priority for our Board of Education and our whole school community, so we would like to shift that position into the general operating budget because we want to continue to support DEI at the classroom level. We also needed to replace some databases. This is K-12, and so you see that $14,058 is databases for our libraries. And then parents in the room will know about Securely. This is the tool that allows you to, and allows faculty and staff to keep track of what students are doing on their devices. Securely is not, we can do better. So we are seeking another more reliable tool in order to monitor our student technology usage and anticipating about a $5,000 increase. In the non-instructional side of the operation, Dr. Van Alstyne already mentioned this. We're looking at a approximately $480,000 increase to our already robust line for contract transportation. We are going to be looking aggressively at trying to pull that back, hiring more drivers, bidding more strategically and collaboratively with our neighbors. So we're hoping this is worst case scenario and we can make that a much smaller number going forward. Gas, diesel has actually gone down. That doesn't happen. I don't get to say that very much, but we have about a $30,000 savings in gas and diesel. And then the last category here is really a compilation of all the increases that we see in our non-instructional operations for supplies, materials, natural gas, uniforms for our maintenance crew, and that's a total of $92,000 across all of Mr. Nooney's operation lines. And then a couple more. Here's another negative. And less money, we are anticipating being able to reduce our budgeted legal fees for next year. We are at the end of all of our tax certiorari litigation and all of that process, so we think we can save about $85,000 in attorney's fees for next year. And then lastly, in the business office, HR side of the house, we are adding another module onto the tool called Recruit Front, which is the platform where we literally manage our process for recruiting, hiring, placing, and monitoring our nearly 950 staff. So I won't read all of this, but we wanted to give you a summary of the numbers of FTEs in each of the categories of our operations that are based on this draft of the budget. And so you can see that there. And I will let everyone know this will be posted to the website and sent to board members right after this, so you'll have the hard copy to take a look at your leisure. So I want to talk about what happens if more resources become available. You know, the legislature is working on the budget right now. Things shift and change between now and April 16th when we will ask our board to adopt a budget. So I want to let the community know what's still up for discussion. There's a lot of things still up for discussion, but you need to know that these are on our minds. Top of the list, though, is, again, with a nod to our needs around social emotional learning. We have a school counselor that's currently shared between Linwood and Altamont that was grant funded. We would love to be able to bring this position back into the general operating budget. We also have, again, in the social emotional world, we have kindergarten through 8th grade teachers who are teacher leaders for our Positivity Project. Those individuals have been really instrumental in implementing that program and keeping it successful as we go along. Mr. Austin requested lots of assistant coaches in many of our existing programs, field hockey, boys and girls basketball, baseball, softball. We haven't said no, but we're not quite ready to say yes. Again, waiting to see if we have additional funds. And yes, flag football is on the list. We are absolutely keeping in mind that this is an important opportunity. It would be for next year. It would be at the varsity level. And we will keep a close eye on our ability to fund that going forward. I've included replenishing our tax certiorari reserve. If we have additional money, given the number of challenges we've had around tax challenges of the properties, we want to be able to have a reserve to address those. We did have a reserve that was quickly depleted by the number of claims we had. As Dr. Van Alstyne showed you, it was $5.7 million. We never had quite that much in that reserve. But we want to make sure that that is available to us. And then finally, we have some, assorted materials, supplies, travel in our business, art, family and consumer science areas, including our organic garden. So we'll keep an eye on those as well. So when we survey the community, we often get a lot of comments about, can you fix the bathrooms? Can you do a new parking lot? And in our general operating budget. And the answer is generally no, we can't do those big projects. But every year we do try to take on one project to help improve our facilities. And so this year, Mr. Nooney, our facilities director, came forward and said, this is the year we need to replace the bleachers in the East Gym. They're inoperable and they need work. So that is in this budget to be done over the summer. We also have within this budget $15,000 that are associated with our pre-referendum work. And this is all about the work that's going on with our Future Ready Task Force. We are wanting to look long-term, and I'm talking 20 years, at can we transform our teaching and learning spaces to look more modern, to prepare our students for the world ahead of them. We can't do this all at once, but what's the long-range plan? So that task force has met twice. There's about 50 people on it. There's subcommittees focusing on elementary, the humanities, STEAM, science, technology, engineering, art and math, and career, our performing arts, our gathering spaces. It's really very exciting work. And our short-term goal is for that group to bring a recommendation that will ultimately go to the voters in May of 2025, so a little more than a year from now. So just to summarize, we're trying to recognize the priorities that everyone told us about in the Thought Exchange survey, the results of which are posted up on our website if you want to read more about the comments that were made and such. We did not want to take programming away. We wanted to maintain the things that we have and the ways we can support students. We wanted to put in as many high priority items that were funded through grant dollars as we possibly could. And honestly, as I stand here today, I'm pleasantly surprised that we could get as many of them in here as we could. 2 months ago, I would not have thought that possible. So I'm very thankful that things have fallen in place as well as they have. We do have to address a lot of costs that are outside of our control: transportation, contract, health insurance increases, the large tax refunds. To quote one of our very wise board members, we didn't create those problems, but we have to solve them. Thank you, Dr. Butterworth. We want to respect our taxpayers. That's the whole, we're not going over that cap. We understand that taxpayers keep us in business here, and we want to respect them. And we also want to understand that these tax refunds, we have to address them, but we don't want to do it at the expense of not being able to fulfill our mission. And if we were to pay Crossgates $5+ million out of this budget, this presentation would be very different. It would be a list of, these are the things we have to cut. These are the increases to class size. So we're making a conscious decision here to balance what our priorities are. Meet our obligations, but not at the expense of our students. So the other thing I just want to say is this is a draft. It is not done, and you would be shocked at the number of things that can change in the next month to 5 weeks. First of which is the outcome of the state budget, and I don't know where that will land. We are not a safe, harmless school, meaning that if there's a big change with that one element of the governor's plan, that won't have a big impact on us. But if there's a change to the calculation of how they figured out inflation, that could have a big impact on us because that was $350,000 that we thought was coming our way that didn't. So that can go a long way. We're still waiting on final bids on energy costs, so that could swing one way or the other. And we're also looking at some special education kinds of things. We have been talking with our colleagues over at BOCES around some special education billing, and we may have some ways to be in a more positive financial position in that way. And so we're looking at potential programmatic changes for our self-contained classrooms, especially at the high school. So the comments that we're hearing from our families are resonating. We're working on this. And then I put other because there will be other. I'm not sure what they are, but there will be other things that happen between now and the time this has to be adopted. So next steps, I know this is like really hard to listen all this time to all this stuff, and it's hard to digest it all. So next week, we will have a Q&A. That gives everyone a chance to digest all of this. Board members, you'll have a chance to ask questions. Our community members will have a chance to come to the podium and ask questions. We'll have our leadership team here to help with any tough questions that district office team can't answer. On March 26th, we have our board budget workshop. And then on the 16th, the board will adopt the budget. On the 7th, it will go to, on the 7th, we'll have our hearing, which is the kind of the formal reiteration of the adopted budget. And then on May 21st, we'll have the budget vote and board election. And I know I'm saying questions, but these are only quick ones because I want to make sure we respect everybody's time. Go ahead, Seema.
This just could be for next week, but one question, I guess this ties in with the question about the special ed teacher and it not being reposted this year, and I don't know if that could be addressed along with the proposed budget. That's one. And then the second, I think there was 4 unassigned FTEs
Yes.
that were in the budget, and so I'm wondering, I don't remember how many we always include, but if we took one of those and instead, got a lot of the other pieces from the extra, like it looked like it was for flag football was 12,000, and there were a bunch of other things on that table that were like under 10,000 or under 15,000. So maybe like reducing an unassigned FTE to 3 and getting extra stuff. That's just what I'm thinking about.
That is, we can always do that. I will say that in an earlier version of this, we actually had 5 FTEs, but there were 8 section reductions. And the 5 elementary principals nearly lost their mind. Can I say that? So we've already lowered it a little bit in order to make that foundational piece as reasonable as we can. So I think there will be other places for us to look to make the flag football and some of those other small things happen.
And this is also, sorry, for next week, also the boys modified volleyball. I understand, like, it sounds like that they asked and that went through athletics, but like, can we explain where that came? Because that is, I've not heard there was any interest in that until more recently.
Yes, that worked its way through the process. The coaches are interested in that because they see that virtually every other team has players who start in 7th grade, 7, 8, 9, 10, and ours start in 9th grade. And just by virtue of the fact they don't have those 2 formative years, we're not competitive. And it shows they had a very, rough season.
I mean, because I know like girls volleyball is definitely more popular than boys. So I'm wondering, for a while I've heard people talking about not having a modified team at the high school for girls volleyball, just to have a better understanding, because there's a lot of asks in the extra that I think that, if there's room that we could maybe address.
Sure.
Do we have girls modified volleyball?
Yes.
Okay.
We don't have 9th grade mod though.
The audience had questions. I don't know.
I have a question. Sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Yes.
Were you done?
No, yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I was just wondering, the Future Ready Task Force, are any of the subcommittees looking specifically at special ed or children with special healthcare needs?
The short answer is there's no assigned group that's doing special education, but there's an elementary group, and then there's a humanities group and a the sciences, math science group, and they're looking at all of instruction. So what are the learning spaces to support all learners in those content areas? But I'm happy to, I mean, actually the chairs of those committees are sitting in the room to make sure that they're thinking about how we use space to support all of our students.
Okay. And my second question, unrelated to that, is fund balance in this budget.
Come on up here, Andrew.
So the budget is budgeted. Actuals will likely come under. We would have had fund balance in previous years had it not been for the tax cert refunds. We have the funds in place to, whenever the Crossgates amount is settled, combine. So if Crossgates is paid next year, we will put the remainder of my recommendation to the board. We put the remainder of funds from this year into the tax certiorari reserve. Use them next school year to pay cash towards the partial cost of that settlement, bond the rest over probably 10 years, which spreads the cost out over those subsequent cohorts and generations, because every dollar we spend on a tax cert is a dollar we can't spend in the classroom. That being said, we also are working on a very detailed long-range financial plan that has one of its emphases, because we've heard this from the board, is building up our reserves. So while we are not dedicating a portion directly to reserves, there will be a plan as we look at how the budget is performing next year. So this year, the fund balance is increasing. My recommendation is to use that for the tax cert refunds.
But there is no fund balance being used as a revenue source. Is that your question?
It was kind of both, so thank you for answering.
There's no fund balance being used. We have it adheres to what we have done for years, which is allocate a small amount of reserves for the budget. It's a fraction of a percent. We've carried those forward for years, but there's no change and there is no unallocated fund balance being used. So the budget fully funds itself.
Thank you.
Other questions?
People were raising their hands in the crowd. I think they can't ask right now.
I think we need to probably, that you can mail your questions in, we can address them next week.
Or if you want to just share your questions, then we'll answer them next week, because we're not going into our full Q&A either. This is the presentation. If you want to just share your questions.
I just think in the process in general, like if it was a little more interactive, I think more stuff would get done, and like the meetings would be better if it was a little more interactive. So it's more of a comment.
Yeah, no, next week is a Q&A when it's purely just all interactive asking questions, but you can definitely share your questions now for all of the presentation of obviously the big draft budget.
Or you can email them in or call and let Linda Livingston or me know, and we can address them happily.
Any other questions or comments? All right, so we can save our, and I'm sure there are a lot of other questions that you guys have, so we can save that till next week for Q&A. Moving on to the next part of the agenda, which includes the consent items, which includes the minutes of the February 13th meeting, the CPSC, CSE recommendations, personnel action, and the financials A through G. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Nate, second Kelly. Any questions or comments? Regan, is Gloria still on there?
Yes.
Okay.
She raised her hand, sorry.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, passes 9-0. Is it 9? It's everybody.
Yes.
Thank you. Next, we'll move on to information items, curriculum and instruction. Rachel?
Good evening. I have one group I'd like to recognize tonight. It is the Farnsworth Middle School Future City team, who had the very exciting honor to finish first at the national competition in Washington, D.C. on February 19th. They also placed earlier in January, they placed first in the region, which is how they got to the competition in D.C. The theme of this year's competition was Electrify Your City Using Clean Energy Resources. The team put in several months of hard work designing and building their city, which they named HEHICA, which relies on hydropower, biomass, geothermal, and hydrogen energy sources. Congratulations to the team members, and so you know they will be here to present to us next week. So they're really, really excited about that. And the team consists of Om Bhagat, Anika Bupati, Jackie Imans, Levi Haralchek, Justin Gian, Ryan Gian, Dhruv Kalapala, Jackson Kearney, Adia Mavaletti, Shlok Prabhushetter, Vachin Prabhushetter, Cooper Radler, Darshana Sarah Ivana Kumar, Andrew Smith, Akshit Thindi, Natalie Tucker, Frederick Wolf, Nico Wood Irvin, Adachava Yala, and Rohan Yaram. And congratulations also to their coaches and team advisors, Kelly Werner, Rebecca Bean, Nancy Behrens, and Jennifer Smith.
Great, thank you, Rachel. And so they'll be here this coming Tuesday, this
Yes.
Tuesday meeting. Great, thank you. I saw them all over the news, so it's pretty big, exciting. Next, we have Superintendent Information, Dr. Wiles.
Thank you. First item, Monday, and this morning of this week was the winter conference of the New York State Council of School Superintendents, where all the superintendents of the state were gathered for 3 days, and without surprise, we spent a lot of time talking about the state budget and implications for various school districts. Zero emission buses were a big topic. But other very important areas that we spent a lot of time talking about were issues of social and emotional wellness of our students, now 4 years out from the pandemic, and how do we address those needs of not only our students, but also of our staff. The commissioner was with us this morning, and we got an update on her perspective on the budget and on our APPR and on the Back to Basics provision in the governor's budget. So it was a full 3 days. I'm happy to be back. My second item is just a reminder that the Guilderland Chamber of Commerce rescheduled their State of the Town Forum that was supposed to be a couple weeks ago. It will now be March 14th. I'll be one of several guest speakers to talk about some of the things going on here in our school district. And last but not least, we are hosting a social media intelligence and well-being presentation for families. This is going to be on Wednesday, March 20th at 7 p.m. We are sponsoring it with the PTA, and it's a virtual learning session for families. Staff are also welcome, on digital and social media intelligence and well-being. The objective is for families to gain clarity and skills needed to knowledgeably discuss the benefits and risks of social media apps, platforms with their children. The speaker will be Chris Vollum, who is a well-known expert on this topic, who actually resides in Canada. So he will be Google meeting in. If you are interested, there is a sign-up sheet, and we'll be advertising it again and again. So keep your eyes open if you haven't seen it already.
Great, Dr. Wiles, thank you. Next, we have board president information. I have one item here. This is information about the Capital Region BOCES annual meeting. The annual meeting of the Cap Region BOCES is scheduled for Wednesday, April 10th, 2024 at 5:30. If board members are interested in attending, please let board clerk Linda Livingston know. Next, we'll move on to action items. First, we'll start with school business. Andrew?
Thank you. I have 3 items. The first is a general fund transfer totaling $116,422.
Can I have a motion to accept the installment purchase resolution? Judy, second. Blanca? Any questions or comments? Oh, I'm sorry. Did you say it's general fund transfers?
Yeah.
It's like just processed. Did we skip A?
Yeah.
I think we skipped
Do I
A.
have them in the wrong?
I mean, we can,
I'm sorry, I have them in the wrong order.
okay. Well, I just want to make sure we're voting on the right one. Can we start with the installment purchase?
sorry.
No, that's okay.
The installment purchase with Cap Region BOCES for Chromebooks for 5th and 9th graders.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to accept the installment purchase for Chromebooks? Nate, second. Kelly. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Passes 9-0.
Thank you. The second is the general fund transfer.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to accept the general fund transfers, Katie and Blanca? Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Passes 9-0.
Thank you. Finally, I have recommendation 2 donations. The first is a monetary donation from Stephen P. O'Connor for costuming of the Guilderland High School musical Beauty and the Beast. Mr. O'Connor is a grandparent of an 11th grader at GHS and a 7th grader at FMS.
Can I have Can I have a motion to accept the donations? Judy, second Nate. Any questions or comments? Just thank you.
Thank you
so much. All in favor?
Aye.
Passes 9-0. Thank you, Andrew. Next, we'll move.
I have one last, sorry, there are two donations.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The
I didn't see that.
Second
Yep.
donation, a large selection of books and sheet music from Francesca Mugres Aiello.
Can I have a motion to accept the donation for the music books and sheet music? Rebecca, second. Kim? Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Passes 9-0. Thank you. Next, we'll move on to superintendent action. Dr. Wiles?
Thank you. My first item is a resolution to approve a settlement agreement that reads, resolve that the Board of Education of the Guilderland Central School District authorizes the superintendent of schools to enter into a settlement on behalf of the district to resolve a special education matter involving student number 76994 with the terms and conditions discussed in executive session.
Can I have a motion to accept the resolution settlement agreement? Kim, second. Kelly? Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Passes 9-0.
And my second item is the appointment of the election chair for the May 21, 2024 budget vote in election. And I'm recommending the appointment of Mr. Neil Sanders to serve as election chair.
Can I have a motion to approve the appointment of election chair? Katie, second. Kelly? Any questions or comments? Welcome back, Neil. All in favor?
Aye.
Passes 9-0. Thank you, Dr. Wiles. Next, we'll move on to board committee reports. We'll start with audit. Rebecca?
We have not met since the last meeting, and we have a meeting next week, I believe, on the 13th at 8
Yes,
a.m.
8 a.m. Yep, thank you. Next, business practices. Judy?
We have not met, but we will be meeting Friday at 8 o'clock, Friday, March 8th at 8 o'clock.
Great, thank you. Next, we have communications. Katie?
We have not met, but we meet again on April 8th at 3:30.
Thank you. Next, we have DEI. I think I said I was going to cover that very last minute. So we had a meeting, I think, last Wednesday. Oh, wow, thank you so much, Dr. Wiles. We had a meeting last Wednesday night. We had report from different subcommittees. They talked a little bit about the fireside chat and where they would continue to have those. The research committee shared out about the survey that they were working on. Student voice talking about using a platform for having it being a platform for students to bring forward issues that they had concerns about. Communications. There was going to be a video, I think, hopefully being shared soon, that shared what people were doing involving DEI around the district. Derek Westbrook shared some of the work that he's been doing around the district, starting to talk about planning for the anti-hate rally. The district-wide equity team met and they talked about their goals. Derek and Leah also shared about some of the classes that they spoke in. And Dr. Wiles shared that we're at that time of the year where we're having some members cycle off the DEI committee and hopefully putting out a call soon for new committee members. And so I don't have the numbers in front of me, but we'll be having several, I think, either administrators, community members step off, and then we'll have spots open for people who want to join. Then the learning component discussion was kind of the second part of the special ed discussion that we've been having. And so the learning component was, I remember there were videos.
No, not this time. We were talking about Best Buddies.
Yes, thank you.
Unified PE, unified sports, and then some programming conversations.
Thank you, Dr. Wells, you're good. And so we talked about that for a while, and so that's pretty much the update. And I don't remember when the next meeting is, but it will
say it's the 28th, but I could be wrong.
I can double check too.
It says the 20th.
That's 20th.
20th?
Of April?
20th of March. it
Of
says,
March.
7 p.m.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't have that in my calendar, but okay, so March 20th at 7 PM. Thank you. Next, we have, let me go back. Policy, Nate?
We haven't met since our last meeting, and we have a meeting next week, on March 12th at 5:30.
Okay, thank you. That's Tuesday, right, at 5:30?
Whatever the 12th is.
Okay.
It's like before the meeting.
Before this, oh, okay,
Yeah,
other
yeah,
meeting, okay. Next, we have public comment number 2. Are there any public comments? I don't know if anybody else got any. We're lost without Linda here today. Okay, and then board issues, ideas, and sharing.
I just had a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I wanted to raise the question to hear more information in an upcoming meeting on how the use of the turf is determined for equitable access between the girls' teams and the boys' teams. If we could hear how that is determined when scheduling access.
Was that something that was that included in the Title IX audit? When we did the Title IX audit list?
I don't
Did it go that far?
Yeah, I don't think we had turf then, right?
Yeah.
Because that was last year's audit, right?
Yeah, I don't think it looked at turf. Yeah. I wonder if there's a way to like revisit the questions at least, or something similar to that about, because I know you've brought it up in the past.
Do you got your question, Katie? Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Nate?
Out loud.
I just want to, we didn't get to talk about it, just a special congrats to FMS Mask. Great show.
Oh,
Notwithstanding some of the subpar older actors on the overall great. I went Friday. I don't know if anybody else got to go. It was great, as always.
Yeah, what I like is the number of kids who are there and filling the stage with such enthusiasm and happiness and whatever. A lot going on. Thank you. Yeah, it was great. Please pass that on to the kids.
Yeah, I went Saturday night. It was great. And I know the high school musical is coming up, so this is this time
weekend.
of year. Yeah, this coming weekend. Other board issues, ideas, and sharing?
I
So-
have a question.
Sure.
So, Marie, a few times you've said, you've brought up how we follow a process. And for the folks who are feeling frustrated about flag football, they left, but they wanted to know what that process is and like what could have been done differently for flag football to have been included.
Really nothing, because it's highly unusual for, once a school year has already begun, for a new sport to be created. So this was really NFL initiative. And they, for whatever reason, decided they wanted to do flag football. When we initially heard about it, it was our understanding that it would be for next year, because at least here in Guilderland, we do have a process. If we're going to add something new to the budget, we literally start in October saying, what are our needs? What are our priorities? What are the things that we want to make sure we include? And so you look at the girls' wrestling team, for example, who waited 3 years to get a coach. We have other teams wanting assistant coaches. So the whole notion of we're going to skip all of those steps in order to create something new, while we know we have other needs in existing programs, it just didn't feel right to leapfrog one wish over another. And it wasn't, unless I missed something, it wasn't something that where a group of students came to us and said, we want to start flag football. This was really the NFL saying to the country, hey, we'll give you a little bit of money, and a very little bit of money, to go ahead and start this and then do it right now. And, Mr. Austin and I had a lot of conversations about this. And how do our existing coaches and programs feel when, we say, no, we can't fund those assistant coaches. No, we can't do this. No, we can't do that. But we can create a new program like in the middle of the year without having budgeted for it. So that's the process. If I had to make a bet right now, we will find $12,500 so that we have flag football next year. But I don't think it's healthy for us to just on a whim, and really it felt on a whim. And my colleagues around the area would say the same thing, but they did it anyway, that we're going to start something without really going through what are the needs, what are the priorities, how does this weigh against many other things that people need and want and value. So those are the things that we start talking about really in October and continue right through April.
So if I may, I felt frustrated. I understand the process. I respect the decisions made. I agree we can't do it right now. But I did bring it to the athletic director on April 4th last year. And so moving forward, I suppose I would have to bring that to you. I did not bring it on behalf of students. It was just a question, and it sounded like it was going to be something we did this year. And so then I think when the students received an email asking about it, that sort of added fuel to the flame then when we couldn't see it through. So I'm just trying to, bring those concerns to you or kind of paint that picture for you. And so I think that's kind of why we have this frustration right now.
Okay.
So, thank you.
Any other board issues, ideas, and sharing? So I didn't plan what I was going to say, but I just wanted to put it out there that I was voted to the Board of Regents earlier today, and my term will start April 1st, and so will resign from the board sometime later this month. I have to look and figure that out, but I just wanted to put that out there.
Congratulations, Seema. Regent Rivera.
So I'll definitely be sad to leave Guilderland, but obviously I'm still here as a parent, and I'm sure you'll see me around.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That is such an honor.
Thank you.
Very proud of you.
Any other issues, ideas, and sharing?
Well, I think that leads to remind the public that there's going to be a board election this year, and if you are interested, definitely fill it out and get involved.
Yeah, I think the packets you can still pick them up, and signatures I don't think are due till April. So, there will be, I guess, 4? Oh no, 3. So my term would have ended, and I would have been rerunning. I couldn't say anything until today, until it was official. So, so I won't be running again, and so there will be some seats open, 2 seats open.
Right, Nate's not running.
And I am not running, so there'll be 2 seats open.
Blanca's running, so there's 1 incumbent.
Yes.
And the petitions are due on the 22nd of April.
Thank you, Dr. Wiles.
Didn't take me that long.
All right, so can I have a motion to adjourn? Kim, second Rebecca. All in favor?
Aye.
Passes 9-0. Thanks, everybody.
That just happened? That just happened.